Welcome. This is a new kind of video I am doing. I haven't really done anything like this before, especially not using my green screen, which I've only used once before on this channel. I'm going to do some book videos, thoughts on books. And as you can tell from the title of this video, this is going to be the book I will do for this first video. But like I've said, I've never done anything like this before. I kind of want to put a little bit of effort into it, and yeah, so I don't like having anything scripted, so this is just gonna be like completely off the cuff, and I'll fix it in editing because that's what I do. I fix everything in editing because everything I say just kind of rambles on, and I don't really ever. So I guess I will begin with kind of what the book is about. I've been a King fan for a little while now. I first started with the Dark Tower series, and I'm gonna probably be doing, videos for that, or a video for that a little ways down the road. I have 3 or 4 of these planned as far as wanting certain things I want to do, but I guess I just recently finished The Stand, so I thought, hey, why not do The Stand? So, I finished the Dark Tower series, and I was kind of looking for something else to read that King has done. And The Stand had been catching my eye for a little while, so I figured, you know, why not? I like post-apocalyptic fiction, or just art in general, is some of my favorite. I absolutely love post-apocalyptic stuff, so I figured maybe this will be a really, really great book for me. So, I picked it up, and it's taken me. I listened to the audiobook, which is 50 hours long. The audiobook of the uncut version, which is like 1,152 pages, I think. Yep, 1,152. This thing is gargantuan. You could kill someone with this thing. So I was a little scared when I picked it up, because I was thinking this is going to take a lot of my time, probably about as much time as it took me to get through the Dark Tower series. I was thinking, because it was so big, but it wasn't so bad. This is, you know, the size of like 2 Dark Tower books, but this could hypothetically have been a trilogy. There's 3 very distinct parts. The first part is called Captain Trips, I believe. And then, yeah, Captain Trips, On the Border, then The Stand. So those 3 could easily have been split up, but no, it's a single tome, and it's enormous. I don't know if the books would have done better or worse as a trilogy, but they almost in a way don't really warrant splitting up. So that's that. It took me, I don't even know how long to finish. I'll put up like when I started it, give or take, or just how long it took me. It took me months. But I just recently finished it, so I thought I would talk about it. I'm going to kind of do like the first half of this talk, really avoiding spoilers. I don't want to spoil anything until the last half of this, and then I'll give you like a time code as to when you can like fast forward to skip all the spoilers. So when I first started this book, I was anticipating almost like I wasn't really know what I was getting into, because the premise of the story is that 99 point whatever percent of the world gets killed by this flu virus that got released from some army encampment or whatever in California. And I knew that a lot of people died, and that they kind of split into 2 factions, good and evil, quote unquote, and kind of hold up in 2 different locations, and that there was going to be a stand where they kind of duked it out. That's pretty much what I knew, but as far as like the tone, the environment, the setting, I wasn't really quite sure, because looking at this cover, like it almost looks like some kind of Shakespearean play. Almost, you got like two dudes fighting, like one with a sword, one with a scythe, in the desert. So I saw that, and I was thinking like, maybe this is gonna be like a Mad Max thing where like everything has changed, people are acting differently, things are kind of weird, but it was very much the opposite. I don't know if King did any research or whatnot, but he took this scenario he made it very realistic. It's like if 99% of the people were killed in the world were killed by a flu, what would be the outcome, you know? So you have to think, killed by flu, it's not like some nuclear bomb went off and destroyed all the buildings. Everything is still standing. It's just everyone's dead. So all the survivors are living in this just empty shell of a world, but there's still houses. There's still everything that exists from what people made before. So that's something that I didn't quite have on my mind when I went in. Like I said, I was anticipating like a Mad Max crazy post-apocalyptic tale, and it turned into this very realistic drama, post-apocalyptic drama. Now, it wasn't... You see this book and you think, what the heck? I'm going to be bored at some point in there. But honestly, the only real slow part, I'd say, was probably the middle part. Obviously, it's like everyone's kind of recouping, getting together. New characters are getting introduced, and, characters are getting established. They're kind of trying to build community back up. So there's kind of, not really some politics, but just kind of some, it's a community. They have like a group of people that says what happens here and there. And it's slow, but it's not really boring. It keeps you engaged. There were parts in the Dark Tower series where I was definitely... I don't like to use the word bored, but it was certainly dragging, and I had to kind of, march on through because I knew that, it was a part I just had to get through. One of those segments in books where it's very easy to put the book down. It's not really a boring part, but it's so easy to be like, I want something more engaging right now, and you'll set the book down. Not the case in The Stand. It was compelling from beginning to end. It was very easy to listen to. The only reason that I took breaks from it occasionally was just because it was so long. It took me months to finish, and sometimes you just need like a break from one work of fiction that you've been in for so long. But at the same time, the cool thing about it being so enormous is the time that it takes you to spend reading this thing really lends itself to like the 6-month span of time that this book takes place in. So that is one thing that books sort of have above like movies, music, all those other instantaneous like works of fiction, where with a movie you can watch it in one sitting, more 9 times out of 10, but with a book, you'll probably not going to read it in one sitting. It's going to take you a while, a couple days, weeks, months. So that's one thing that The Stand kind of had working in its favor and really sort of added to the whole element of whatever the book had going on. So getting back to the whole King took this scenario very realistically. There's a chapter in the book, I think it was omitted and from the normal version, and it's in the uncut version, which is what I consider to be the true version or the proper version now, because Doubleday initially wanted that cut because they thought the book would be too long and people wouldn't want to read it, which is fair enough. There's a lot in there that can technically be taken out, but like I said, I found it compelling all the way through. I thought all the content in it was really good. Maybe supplementary, but why not have it there? So there was this chapter that was omitted from the original version, which kind of basically chronicles a handful of deaths that happened post-flu but weren't flu-related, which I found really interesting. Something like, I'm paraphrasing here, I don't remember exactly how it happened, but like this little kid, like 5 years old, something, boy or girl, I forget, its parents die from the flu, and it's just wandering around on its own, and it falls into a well and dies. Just stuff like that, where all the situation that the flu has put the world in, there's certain people who died because certain people had died of the flu. And it's a really interesting part of the book, and I'm glad that I got to read it, because it just added that extra bit of flavor to the world. It's like, this could be, you know, a real thing. Well, not a real thing, but, you know, this is what could easily happen. So I found that part of the book really interesting. So kind of talking a bit about the plot now. The book revolves around a handful of survivors of the flu. You meet a lot of them initially in the beginning parts of the book. You kind of get introduced to them early on, and you kind of get to see their lives change as the flu takes over the nation. And by the way, the Captain Trips part, you know everyone's going to die. I mean, if you've read any kind of synopsis on the book, which I'm sure you would before you read any kind of book, maybe, you know, most people, you know everyone's going to die. So you think that would take away like some tension or suspense or some kind of plot juice from the beginning part of the book, which takes up, you know, a decent portion of it, kind of telling about how, you know, the world just falls and collapses. But it was very engaging to read. Just all these different scenarios going on. How the virus gets spread is very well written, engaging to read. So that was a very good section of the book. I liked that very much. I was surprised at he cut it off just before it was about to get tedious, because like you can only explain so much about what you already know the result is going to be. So he kind of gave it a good cutoff point. Then the second part of the book, On the Border, is where everyone congregates into their groups and gets kind of built up and ready. Like I said, it's one of the more methodical parts of the book. You get a lot of people meeting up in Boulder and Las Vegas, and this is where the two God-esque characters are really kind of highlighted. You got Mother Abigail, who's like, you know, the Christian woman, and you got Randall Flagg, who's kind of like the Antichrist figure or something. I mean, Randall Flagg appears in The Dark Tower. He appears in a lot of King's fiction. So he kind of flits here and there. It's a really interesting thing, the way King uses him. But he shows up with the flu here, and he's like, this is my chance to kind of take over, you know, kill the good people, take over the world, you know, now that everyone's dead. I think some people theorize that maybe Flagg let the virus loose from the place. Who knows? I wouldn't put it past him. So you get, like Mother Abigail gets a lot more of the book dedicated to her in part 2, which I think is great. It didn't dive into the backstory of her too much, but just enough to kind of give her an edge and kind of, you know, give her her place in the text. So that kind of gets established, and you get to see the drama of, you know, all the different... And this is the interesting thing. I mean, Walking Dead needs to take notes from The Stand as to how to properly do a post-apocalyptic drama. You know, there aren't people who are over-dramatic, they're very real people. They have real problems, and they deal with them as a sane person would. It's very believable, and you're never like just completely aggravated. Well, sometimes, but it's warranted. So you get to kind of see the drama unfold in part 2, and you get to see people sort of rebuild. It's a really interesting portion, and I was expecting it to be a lot more tedious than it was, but thankfully it wasn't. So there you go. And then the third part, The Stand, like I said, I'm going to save spoilers for later. This is just kind of a vague here and there thing. The final part of the book, it was building up to this, the battle between good and evil. Like I said, I don't want to be too spoiler heavy, but I'm going to try to be as vague as I can here. I was extremely surprised at the way King approached The Stand. I wasn't expecting what he had in store. It subverted my expectations in a really good way, and it was definitely full of surprises. I did not see the end coming, but I was completely satisfied with it. I thought it was excellent. He couldn't. So that's the thing. King has said that the hardest part of story writing, paraphrasing here, is kind of writing the end, which I can completely agree. Writing the end to something, especially something that's gotten really built up, like what happens in The Stand, like that ending, it's like good and evil. How are you going to do that? What's your game plan? So, all in all, I think that the people say that this might be King's magnum opus. King thinks that Dark Tower is his magnum opus, but all the readers seem to point to this one being his best book. And I've only read the Dark Tower series and this, and I'd have to say Dark Tower series is my favorite book series of his, but I think that this is better. I think that the writing in this is never confusing. It's very easy, for the most part, easy to read, and it's compelling. The language is really good, and just pretty much every aspect about it is stellar. So I'm going to dive into spoilers now, so prepare yourself. Skip to this time if you don't want spoilers. Following all the different characters in the book, you got Stu, you got Larry, you got Nick, you got Franny and Harold, and then others are kind of introduced as you go. The one thing I really liked that King does with his characters is he kind of gives them each their own little spice, their own little bit of flavor to kind of differentiate them. Because it's so easy to just muddle personalities and play it safe when you're writing characters, but he really knows how to give them that accent. Like, Larry, he has his "baby, can you dig your man" thing. Trash Can, he has his the paycheck thing. A lot of different quirks for him. Stu Redman has his own kind of subdued stuff. Franny has, like her parents, the trouble with her parents. Harold has his, bullied kind of past. They all just have very different and unique traits to their characters, and it made it very easy to tell them apart. But there's a lot of the smaller characters, the side characters, where I couldn't really tell them apart half the time. Like Ralph and Glenn were kind of the two bigger side characters, and I don't know if it's just I wasn't paying attention, but like I didn't know what they were doing half the time. I didn't know what they did. I think Glenn was the older guy, but they just kind of all blended together. The side characters did, which I can understand. In a book this size, you got to do what you got to do, and that can be a really difficult thing to balance. So I think that was okay. But yeah, Captain Trips destroys the nation, destroys the world. Yeah, all of these characters, you're following them through through Captain Tripp, seeing their lives change. You get to On the Border. I was very surprised at how little of Las Vegas was shown until the Stand portion of the book. The part with Trash Can Man and the kid, which I think is actually cut from the original, which makes sense, but I found it to be a very interesting and compelling. It kept me listening or reading. Trash Can Man and the kid heading to Las Vegas, or the Trash Can Man anyway, his little bit going to Las Vegas, that's pretty much all you get in the first parts of the book in terms of, heading to Las Vegas. Is you get that little stint with Trash Can Man. There might have been something with Lloyd. Apart from that, you don't really get to see anything else until like Stu, Larry, Glenn, and Ralph, I think that's who goes, until they head off for Las Vegas. I don't think you get to see anything. And On the Border, it's mainly all in Boulder, which I thought was really interesting. I was expecting it to go back and forth, but it completely focused on Boulder, which I thought was very clever because we're clinging to our protagonists throughout this story. So it makes sense that, they don't know what's going on over in Las Vegas. They're in the black, so we need to be as well. Well, we don't need to be, but that was a choice Kevin Sting. That's just a choice Stephen King made, and I found that to be a very interesting path to take. So you get Mother Abigail going on there, and the fascinating thing I think about this book is how, I don't want to use the word religious, but it's very God-based. There's a lot of elements like faith, kind of Christianity, the devil. I found this book to be much more accurate in terms of what it means to have faith than a lot of other Christian material out there. It's kind of there's elements of blind faith in there, where Mother Abigail is you guys need to just leave this room right now and walk to Las Vegas. Don't take anything with you. Just go. And that's a scary thing to do. It's you gotta have faith for that. And, she did. And then they subsequently did. And hooray, the day was saved. And that's a very big element of stuff like what the Bible teaches is you might not know what's in store for you, but do this. And, I promise to hold your hand through it. And that was a very big part of this story is, that seemed the most unnatural thing to do, but they went with it and, things played out. So I find that a very interesting part that Stephen King kind of incorporated into the story. It's a very, very God-centered parable, almost, in a way. Not that that's the main focus, but it's a very big part. Good and evil. That's what this thing is about. So of course, On the Border ends with Harold and Nadine blowing up Nick's house, killing Nick and a couple other people. And that part of the book was kind of where writer's block came in for Stephen King, because he was I don't know what to do with these people. They're obviously paraphrasing again, but it's they're here, they're building their community back up. What do I do? Where do I go with them? So he basically said they needed a wake-up call. Their first instinct after the power went off was, we gotta get the power back on. And that wasn't necessarily what God had in store. That wasn't the initial thing. Which is kind of an interesting thing about Mother Abigail, I thought, was how she didn't rely on power. She was a woman from way back in the day, and she had her gas lamps and, gas stove. So she was almost ready for this thing. It's sort of interesting how he dealt with that wake-up call and basically said, all right, you guys, you didn't really have this going the right way. You need to be told that this is a serious situation. They weren't really prepping for it or anything. They weren't thinking about it, and now they are. Harold and Nadine are headed out. We got to do something. So Mother Abigail comes back. She obviously is dying, and before she dies, she tells them, you guys got to go to Las Vegas. In the clothes you're standing, bring nothing. No food or water. Just go. And she dies. And they're like, okay. So they have faith. They do it. They walk out. They're headed out there, and then, Stu falls, breaks his leg twice, and you're thinking, and Stephen King even writes, none of the other three guys ever see Stu again. And, your mind immediately thinks, Stu is going to die here, the other guys are going to go save the day. It's kind of switched a little bit. As soon as he said, Stu will they never see Stu again, I'm thinking, I don't feel like Stu can die like this. I mean, I don't put it past King, but I really think something else is going to happen here. So the other guys get to Vegas. Randall Flagg puts on a big show to kill them. And then Trash Can Man, who had been, messing around with explosives. One of my favorite elements of Trash Can Man, I forget if it was a vision or what, but there's a part in the book where Randall Flagg shows him the country on fire, and he's like, "This, you will do this. This will be yours or whatever." And I'm like, I know this is going to come back into play in a little while, so I'm going to wait for that because I know King. And sure enough, it did. Trash Can Man was kind of blowing up random crap in Las Vegas. People insulted him, so he kind of went crazy and blew up the airplanes and all of Randall Flagg's pilots, so he got mad, and he's like, oh no, what have I done? I need to go fix this. So he's like, what can I go find that'll make Randall Flagg happy again? So he finds this A-bomb down below in some bunker, I don't even remember, and he hauls it back to Randall Flagg just in time for Larry and Ralph's dismemberment. He's suffering from radiation exposure or whatever. He's falling apart. If they make the 3-hour R-rated movie, I can't wait for this segment. But yeah, he has no eyelids. His teeth are gone. He's melting. But he's driving this A-bomb into Las Vegas and this crowd of people, and he's like, my life for you. And then previously, Randall Flagg had killed one of the people in Las Vegas who wanted to desert with this energy ball. And the energy ball is still hanging around, and then basically God uses that energy ball to detonate that bomb, and it destroys Las Vegas, wiping out the bad guys. Randall Flagg teleports away though. So Trash Can Man, Lloyd Henry, Larry, Ralph, they're all dead. And Tom Cullen, on his way back, saves Stu, and blah, 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 happily ever after. It was a much more subtle and understated stand than I was anticipating. It was so minimalistic, it wasn't expected, and that's kind of, how Randall Flagg got defeated, is he wasn't ready for it. So it kind of took him by surprise, and bam, fate spoke. So those are my thoughts on the book. I just kind of ran through it. Ran through the plot. I need to do these better. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Like I said, I hope to do more Dark Tower. Handful of others, just an elongated review, things I thought were interesting as I run through. So yeah, I give this book a 9 out of 10 at least. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's one of my favorites now. And yeah, I highly recommend it to anyone who likes apocalyptic fiction, dramas. science fiction stuff like that. Don't be afraid of the size. That's what I said. And yeah, definitely go for it. It's really good. So stay tuned for more videos of this type. They'll hopefully get better because this was here and there and all over the place. So whatever. But